some fishing royalty in this crowd, that's for sure. You're not one of them. I hope everybody can see me at the back. I think I might have needed a chair on here. I'm only being, yeah. Nice to see so friendly faces in the crowd. So I thought I'd do this talk, because obviously I think a lot of people think that I just sit on the Trent for 3 or 4 days, 5 days and bore the fish to death until they take me bait. And I've actually fished lots of rivers over the years. The Warwickshire Avon, Derwent, Kennet, not just the Trent. But people who know me well already know that. But so I just thought this talk, actually, people will know actually what I'm all about really. And when I'm fishing on the Trent, if I'm on my own, I do like to move about a lot. So if I do 3 nights, I might fish 3 swims on 3 different stretches. If I'm guiding, I'm normally sat 48 hours or 24 hours. So I'd like to thank Nottingham Piscatorial Society for inviting me to this talk. And I hope you all enjoy it. I'm not going to bombard you with 3,000 pictures of barbel, because they're all the same, and you'll get bored, and I'll get bored. So I'm just going to talk about rolling meat, my static tactics, how I got to that, how it is now. A few special stories about a few barbel I've had over the years. One about my dad. A bad day's fishing, because we've all had bad days, haven't we? We've all had really good days. So I'm going to talk about a bad day, which was a bad day. I'm going to talk about a red letter day I had when the conditions were really poor. And if you have time after, because Bob keeps telling me I've got 45 minutes, I'm going to talk about 3 things I've learnt over the years about barbel fishing. I've learnt more than 3 things, obviously. So, hopefully we've got a few pictures on. Yeah, what my rolling meat tactics and what I use. Hope you can all see that. Quite simple, really. I use a 2 pound test curve rod. It's quite a light rod, it's a cadence rod. I can hold that for 3 or 4 hours. Some people like a lighter rod, but I like that little bit of extra power to get the barbel in a bit quicker. So I'm getting them in so they've still got plenty of energy. As you can see, these 15 pound mono line, plasticine, all shots. Plasticine's a lot cheaper, by the way, if you're going to do it. Good strong hook. Obviously the spam. I use rig tubing as well, which I thread that on the line first and I crimp the shots onto the tubing so it doesn't damage the line. And if you do get snagged up, the rig tubing will slide down the line. So sometimes you get it out of the snag. If it's really snaggy, I'll put a BB on the rig tubing and mould the plasticine round. So I was fortunate to meet a bloke called Ray Walton on the Hampshire Avon. I fished on there for 6 years. And he had virtually lived on there at that time. So I learnt a few tips off him, and a lot of advice he gave me. And my dad's friend mate, Howard Maddox, all he does is roll meat. So he's given me a lot of tips and hints over the years. So I've learnt off 2 good people. But you can't learn it overnight. So I just think it's a tactic that's not really used much on the Trent. I know a lot of people do it, but a lot of people more like rods in the air, bite alarms and all that, which is good because I do that as well. But along with float fishing and rolling meat, I don't think you're going to get a better tactic, especially for numbers of barbel. I think if you're in a swim, and a lot of people on the Trent, they're catching at night, so you're not catching much in the day. So they're wasting 8 hours just sat there waiting for night. So get the meat on, roll meat, work your swim. You'll find more about the swim and what's on the bottom by rolling meat because you can feel the lead, the shots bouncing down the lead. And you'll feel if it's on gravel, sandy bottom, rocky bottom, and you also find big snags. So you'll find bits where you think, oh, that's where I can have my static baits at night. So you'll learn a lot about your swim, and you might even pick up a few extra barbel in the day where normally you're just waiting for night to come. And if you're fishing a stretch where it's quiet, and there's nobody about, and obviously your gear's safe, get a little bag, bottle of water, a few bits in the bag, and go walking a few swims. You'll pick barbel up and pegs you've never even thought of fishing before. And you can walk for miles and miles, and it keeps you fit, and obviously the day goes quite quick. So I think you can learn a lot when you're rolling meat, especially if you're sat in a peg all day not doing anything. You'll pick fish up when you normally just wait until 8 o'clock at night. And when you cast out and you're working your swim, and you can feel it bouncing down the gravel, you're holding your rod, and next minute the rod's getting ripped out of your hand. The feeling is just unbelievable. It's adrenaline rush, the heart's going. It's a brilliant feeling. And you'll be surprised when you're chucking it out and it's bouncing round, how many fish you actually get really close in, because you've followed the bait round. And like I say, you're holding your rod, and not every bite's ripping out your hand. You get plucks and bangs, and you've got to know what to hit and what not to hit. But when it rips out your hand, it's like when you're trotting a float. You see that float go under, you hit into a barb or a nice chub. It's a brilliant feeling. So I think you can just work your swim. Like I say, you catch a lot of fish. I don't think people use it a lot, but it does take a good few years to get it down to, it's took me years. I was rubbish at it when I first started. I didn't know what we're doing. But it's important to put enough weight on so it's going down the same pace as the river. You don't want your meat going down quicker in the flow, or it's not moving at all, because that's just like a static bait. You want to just make sure it goes down the same pace so it looks natural. So we've got a few pictures. Well, there's one rig. Got the shots on one rig, and obviously the plasticine. Get the plasticine off eBay, Amazon. It's obviously a lot cheaper. Years ago, I used to go through so many shots on leads, it used to cost me an arm and a leg. So the plasticine is a good route to go. It's dead simple. Good strong hook you need. And you'll see that. I could have picked loads of pictures of barbel to put on, but I've just picked one there in summertime. I've had them on the middle Trent, the tidal Trent. So it's just a fantastic tactic. I've urged people to try rolling meat, even if you've never done it before. Just try it. You'll learn a lot about where you're fishing, especially your swim. You'll know what the bottom's like, and you can find stuff on the bottom like snags, and you can use that for when you're fishing on your static bait at night. So that's a nice barbel. And there's another one. You'll see most of them barbel caught in the day. A lot of times when you're fishing, I've had days where I'm fishing static baits and it's just dead. And I'll decide to roll meat. 5 minutes later, got a barbel. The barbel's still there, they're just not interested. If you can roll something, or trot a maggot down, or a mussel, they'll have it. They're always there. People think if they're not catching it today, there's no fish there. Well, they're just parked up. We just got to try that a little bit different, and you'll catch them in the day. Well, yeah, it's a fantastic tactic. I love doing it. And some of the lads I know who've started doing it this season, they love doing it now as well. They've had a lot of barbel, and they can see what I've been saying all along. So now we'll talk about my static approach and how I came to that approach. Hope you all can see it in a minute. But I used to use feeders years ago, and I used to catch a lot of barbel on feeders, and I know people catch lots of barbel now on feeders. But I'd always catch me bigger fish on the lead. So I forgot to thinking, well, why can't I have both on lead? And I think a lot of people on the Trent nowadays who use feeders, they're casting the feeder out every 2-3 hours, sometimes longer. So half the time, there's no bait in the feeder after about 5 minutes. So to me, it's pointless. So I thought, right, and I'd watched the videos that Bob had done, and Stuart, about the PVA bags rolling down the river, and they do that, because I stand in the river with my rigs to see what happens. When I used to hook the bag on the top of the bag, what happens is the bottom of the bag does flip up. Then after a bit, when it's dissolved, it rolls down the river. And I didn't want that. So if you can see the bait, I hook it in the middle of the bag. So the weight's in the middle of the bag. I use the PVA tape, because the PVA tape dissolves after the bag. And I know that because I've been stood in the river watching it. And what I'll do, I'll cut a big piece off, and I'll go around 5 times one way, 5 times the other way. As you can see, I'll go around the top of the cocoon and the bottom of the hook. So nothing's getting tangled. I know when that bait hits the bottom, it's staying there. And if I'm fishing somewhere really pacey, I'll put a few stones and pebbles in the bag if you have to weigh it down. But I know if I'm fishing at night, and I like to leave my baits out at night for 3 or 4 hours if I can, because I don't like any disturbance, I know that bait isn't tangled, and that what's coming out of that bag is staying near that cocoon. Now I know the baits roll down river eventually. That's why I put bigger baits in the bags. I put 8mm pellets, 10mm pellets, 14mm pellets. Same with the boilies, same with the cocoons, because the bigger baits, so the smaller fish have got less chance of getting them and eating them quicker. And if I'm fishing a top rod, sometimes I put a bag on the lead. But on the bag on the lead, I'll double bag it. I don't use a lead clip, because that's just something else for tangle in my opinion. I'll just put it through the eye of the lead and just tie a simple knot. Then I'll PVA tape it to the lead. And because it's double bagged, it'll dissolve after that one. Now once that's dissolved, the bait will roll down from the hook, 3 or 4 foot. Some of it will stay, depends if you're fishing it's a rocky or gravelly. Then after that's dissolved on the lead, that will trickle down. So you've got quite a bit of bait there, out for a long period of time. I just think, like I said, I've had barbel feeders and I used to use feeders all the time, but I found that barb would spook off the feeders after a bit. So I wasn't that confident on them. So that's why I went to that approach basically. And I've had plenty of barbel on that, as people have seen over the years. It's a simple tactic. It's a semi-fix. I like the semi-fix because you get a better hook hold. The lead sets the hook, then it becomes a running rig. Obviously it's on a lead clip, it's on a quick release red clip, so if you get snagged up, I'd rather lose the lead than the fish all day long. I've had some good barbel on that. Put a picture on if you want. Well, that's the other rig I use with the pellets. It's the same thing, but as you can see, I use a cocktail stick. Some people know why I use this. It's for 2 reasons. One, on the tidal shrimp, we've got mitten crabs. And they're very good at taking that boilie stop off and taking that bait off without you knowing it. So what the cocktail stick does, it swells up in the water. I push that cocktail stick right the way through the pellet and just leave a bit off and it swells up. So many times I've brought the bait in and there's been no boilie stop, but the bait's still on. I can't get that, because it's an hardened pellet, because it's quite oily, I've got to bite that pellet off to get it off when I want to put a fresh one on, because of the cocktail stick. So it keeps it on. And the second reason, it's a buoyant, the cocktail sticks are buoyant. So it makes the pellet a bit lighter. It's not like a wafter, it moves just ever so slightly, and it just looks a bit more natural to me in the water. So there are the 2 reasons you use the cocktail stick. It's the same setup, the tape does the same thing. Like I say, I've been stood in the river with my baits in 3 foot of water, obviously not any higher, otherwise I'd be under my neck. So, and I've seen what happens, and I check all my rigs, and I tell everybody who come with me on a guiding session, or friends, the important bit is the last 2, 3 foot, 4 foot is the important bit. Forget all the fancy rods we've got and the bite alarms and all that lot. They mean nothing. That's the important bit, the last bit. You get that right. So I stand in the water, look at my rigs, if I can. And I like to blend my rigs to the bottom of the water so it's camouflaged best I can. So if I can't see it, I'm happy. But the barbel probably can see it, but I'm still happy. So it's all about getting that right. That's the important bit. Now, having a decent rig, I catch barbel in the day, just like probably a lot of people in this room catch them in the day. So if you catch them in the day, your rigs are working. We can all catch them at night, obviously they can't see as good, but if you catch them in the day, then you know your rigs are working. So that's the important bit. Your end rig is the important bit. Get that right, pay attention to detail. I get a lot of people coming with me and they go, well that'll do, and I don't like that word, that'll do. But no, that won't do. So I'll get them to make the rig time and time and time again until I think it's spot on. Because that's important, because you could be sat all day, you might get, especially in winter when they don't feed for as long. Summer's different. You know, they'll feed all the time. You know, they're thick in summer, aren't they? So you catch loads in summer. But in winter, when it's cold, they're not, you know, feeding as much. If they do come in for a bit of a feed, you want to make sure your end rig's spot on and everything's, there's no tangles, no nothing. So it gives you every opportunity of catching that fish. So you'll see a few pictures now I've got. That was on the tidal Trent. You can see it all there. That was caught on them same rigs. My rigs are simple, there's nothing fancy. I don't do any carp rigs and all that lot. I just try and blend it all and make sure it all sits perfectly and the PVA bags are doing what I want them to do. I'm not saying, you know, no, that's not, that's geez, I've got hair there, wow. That's not, that's a bad day's fishing, that is.
Do you want me to go back?
Yeah, yeah. Should have another picture of another barbel I've had. Yeah.
That's the only one.
Right, okay. Well, anyway, I've had, as you've all seen, I've had a lot of barbel. That's why I didn't want to bombard you all the pictures tonight. So now, we'll go back to that picture again when we've got air. And that was actually on the River Wye. This is the bad days fishing. We've all had good days, we've had lots of barbel, but we've all had bad days. Yeah, wow. That's when Fergie was in charge of United, had all that air. Since he's left, I'm bald. So I blame Fergie. But it was on the Wye, it was foot and mouth, so we weren't allowed to drive on the rivers, you had to walk. And it was on a stretch called the Red Line at Bredberdine. Some of you might have fished it. So this time me and my mate was fishing on there, and we'd had a few barbel. It was red hot, we had no rain for 2 or 3 weeks. Lovely weather. And I said, shall we'll leave the gear in the swim, eh? Yeah, yeah. So we walked back to the car, drove back to the pub, had a few drinks with my dad, because it was a fishing holiday where we'd all go for a week. There's about 16 of us, my dad and my friends. Next morning, we got up at 5 o'clock, wanted an early bar before breakfast. Breakfast at 8 o'clock. So me and my mate would go, because we didn't drink much at night. My dad and all them, when we were going fishing at 5 in the morning, they were still coming back from the pub. So we'd go out early, and was walking down to the river, and I said to my mate, looks a bit big, this river today does. I can laugh about it now, but at the time, I was devastated. We got to the river, and they let the dams open above river. They let 8 foot of water in. So we've got to the pegs, and all the tackle had gone. Just one chair floating on top. Rods, rod bags, rucksacks, everything. Hundreds and hundreds of pounds had gone. My mate was on the floor, banging the floor, crying. I was just like, just couldn't believe it. So we walked back to the pub, got back, obviously, everybody was up then. Told them what had happened, and obviously, you know what happens. The amount of Mickey taking we got, and the ribbing we got. Obviously, we was just devastated, obviously lost all that gear. So we had to go to the tackle shop and buy new gear. Obviously, at the time, we didn't have money to go out and buy £400 worth of gear. My dad gave me £100 to be fair. And so we bought all new tackle, still devastated. Obviously getting Mickey taken as the week went on, because it happened the second day of the holiday. We were there for 7 days, so I couldn't go home. So that picture was at back end of the week with a new tackle. That was I think it was 11 something off the Y. And but at the start of the week, I was just devastated. Now I can laugh about it, but at the time, losing all that gear, and I was thinking to myself, why did we leave the gear there? But we'd had no rain for weeks, so not like we'd had rain, so we knew we were going to come up, but they let the dam up, and obviously the Y comes up and down really quick. But when I got to the swim, and there was nothing there apart from a floating chair, I was devastated isn't the word, but that was probably the worst time I've had him. But I know it looks like I'm smiling there now, but at the beginning of the week, I was not smiling. So that just shows, well, you do have the bad days and bad times and bad sessions. So it's not all about the good times. We've all had good times, haven't we? So next thing I want to speak about, if you want to put the picture on. No, that's a scenic shot. Right, this one is a special barbel because obviously some of you will know that my dad passed away in June. He was a big barbel angler. Loved his fishing, larger than life character, dead funny, dead loud, but just loved his fishing. Well, this time, it was last season I think sometime, me and Harry and my dad was fishing on the Middle Trent. And where we're fishing, we're catching more at night, so in the day it was like, my son was playing with my dad and the dog all day. So they were making loads of noise, shouting and screaming, paddling in the water. And my dad and Harry decided to skimming stones, like you do. Harry had never seen that before. So my dad showed him, so they were skimming stones through. And and having a laugh. And my dad got the catapult out. I said, yeah, I'll see how many get with catapult. So he's got the catapult out. So Harry goes, can I have a go? And he's calling Grandad Mick. So his dad showed him. So he's flicking it out. And I was making rigs in my bivvy, and I could hear my dad screaming with laughter. So after about 5 or 6 times, I was thinking, what is he laughing at? So I've looked out, so I've gone over. I said, my dad's got tears. Anybody who knew my dad, his laugh was dead loud. He was like, just a funny bloke. And he had tears in his eyes. You know when you're laughing so much and you try to tell somebody something you can't. So he said, just watch what he's doing. So Harry was flicking it out, and I could see what was happening. And Harry was thinking he was doing it he was too strong. And he was casting it over the river. He was like, I'm too strong, I am, Mick. To my dad, Grandad Mick, I'm too strong. So what was happening is he was pulling it back, and when he was letting it go, the stone was dropping out, and it was dropping down to near his feet. So he didn't know that, so my dad's laughing. So this happens again. And he goes, what are you laughing at, Grandad Mick? So my dad said, just look at your feet. And where he was stood on a sandbank, all these stones around his feet. So he said, Grandad Mick, why didn't you tell me this ages ago? You let me do this for half an hour thinking I'm dead strong. So my dad at this time's rolling about on the bank. And we're all laughing and shouting and screaming. Next minute, beep, I'm working around and the one rod I've got in is absolutely tearing off. So I've run over to the rod, picked up, my dad and Harry have come over, and my dad says, you've got to be the jammiest angler I've ever come across. We've made all this noise, chucking stones in, jumping in the river, the dog's barking. So I'm playing this fish, and my dad goes, you've got more jam than Hartley's. So I'm playing this fish, and Harry goes, you've caught that fish because of me. I think, oh, why? I said, because all them stones are chucking in. I think the Bible think they're boilies. So I've got this, and my dad's again laughing his head off. So I've got this fish in. I mean, the noise we were making was just ridiculous. But it just brings back so good memories, because my dad was just one of these people who just loved being on the river, whether he caught or not. He just loved being there with his dog. People who met him will tell you the same thing. He didn't care if he caught or not. And that time, it was just a special time. So I'll say to anybody in here now, you know, if your dads and your mums are alive, you know, make the most of them. You know, if they go fishing, do more fishing with them. Because you never know when they're taken from you. The one thing we've always got is the memories. I've got so many good memories of my dad. And a lot of it's taken the mick out of me. But that's what it was like. So that barb was a special barbel to me. Because the amount of fun we had, you wouldn't expect to buy it. You just wouldn't. It was just like, and my dad was just more, it was just like, I couldn't believe it. But if you could just see what it was like, he was a big bloke. And he was just rolling about crying because Harry was making laugh with the catapult. It was just so funny. So that just brings back some good memories, that does. So the next picture I'm going to put on. This is a red letter session, and this was last year. I weren't supposed to be going fishing, to be fair, but the girlfriend was poorly, not too poorly, but she didn't want to go out. It was over Christmas, and they wanted to stay in watching Christmas programmes, cartoons, which I can't be doing with. So I said, do you mind if we go fishing? She went, yeah, crack on. So I thought, I knew the conditions were rubbish. The air pressure was 1042. It was pretty cool. I know the sun was out there, but it was cold. So got to the river, borrowed the gear on. I thought, well, if I have 2 barb, I'll be happy. We'll do a couple of nights. So I sat back, cast out on the bivvy, sat in my bed chair. I think I was looking at Angling Times. Weren't expecting anything till night. And 5 minutes later, so 1 toner. So I fell off the bed chair. I've come out of the bivvy with nothing on my feet because I weren't expecting anything. Oh, and then obviously I've had that barbel. And it was just continuous bites. And the conditions were so poor. I mean, I've been fishing when the conditions have been bob on and you think, I'm going to have a good session here. And you have a rubbish session. And I've been out, if we all waited for the perfect conditions, I don't think we'd ever go. And the amount of times I've been out and the conditions are just not, you just won't think it'd be very good. And I've had a barbel. On that session, I think he had 32 barbel that session, I think. In just 36 hours. It was just an epic session. And that just shows you that don't wait for the, perfect conditions. Just go. So while you got a bait in the water, you've got a chance. I weren't expecting much, to be fair, but it's just one of them sessions where everything works. Well, I could put loads of pictures on what I caught, I'll just pick that one. But we've all had good red letter sessions. So my advice is, if you think it's rubbish and you're not, just go. I weren't supposed to be going, but because the girlfriend was not very well, and she said, go if you want, I've gone. So always make the most of an opportunity, and like I say, it was a very good day session, good night session for 2 nights. So the next thing I want to talk about, have we got on? Well, obviously that's my dad, and obviously that was a barbel off the Kennet, at 15, I think it was 4 on maggots. Like I say, just loved this fishing. And we used to fish all around different rivers, on the Kennet, the Thames, the Dove, the Royalty. So I'm not just a Trent lad. I know a lot of people think I live in Newark. I actually live in Macclesfield, and it's like 2 hours to get here. So actually I do put a lot of time and effort to get here to fish. So obviously if I was local, I would do 8-hour sessions, but when you live so far away, it's hard to do 8-hour sessions, especially with the diesel prices this day and age. So as you can see, he's always smiling, my dad. And this talk is dedicated to my dad, to be fair, because if he was alive, he'd be here tonight. A few lads from Mac as well. So another thing I want to talk about is 3 things I've learned over the years barbel fishing. And I've learned more than 3 things. I've learned hundreds of things. One thing I've learned is don't think you're a know-it-all. Yeah, always listen to people with ideas, because sometimes you can come up with ideas you've never thought about, and you think, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And try and adapt it to your fishing, and try and make it a better idea if you can. So I'm still learning. I've been barbel fishing for a long time, and I don't think I know it all by any means. And there'll be, in my opinion, there's better anglers in this room than me. That's why I can't believe I stood here, to be honest, when they asked me to do it. But always prepared to learn new stuff. Don't think, if you think you know it all, you'll never get any better. I listen to people's advice, and I think, yeah, it's good. And sometimes I'll think, no. But I've listened to people over the years, and that's why we've got my rigs how they are, and different types of fishing as well. So don't be prepared to listen to other people. Don't think you're a big head. But like I say, I'm still learning. I listen to people all the time, because you can always learn new tricks. And if you've got something that gives you a bit of an edge in fishing, you'll always catch more barbel than the next person. So the second thing I've learned over the years is prepare to move. Now I know I've got a van now, but before that, obviously I used to bivvy up, and I still bivvy up a lot now. But I would move no problem at 2 o'clock in the morning in winter. If someone told me to move or didn't feel right, I'd pack away and I'd move. I'd just go to another stretch, another peg. And I'd be always doing it. 9 times out of 10, that move pays off. I know it's a faff packing away, and I've packed away in winter at 2 o'clock in the morning. I've had my hands against the exhaust, trying to warm my hands up. But the move always pays off for me. So if someone's telling you it's not right, don't be lazy and think, oh no, it'll come good. Because sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it might do. But my advice is, if you're not feeling it, move to another peg or another. Sometimes I've moved 100 yards down stretch and I've caught straight away. Because I'll be sat in a swim and it just won't feel right. So prepare to move. Because I move all the time. Obviously now I've got a van, that's why I like to move on, fish different stretches when I'm fishing on my own. Because I get bored of seeing the same scenery and I like to try and catch different fish. I think if you fish the same area or same swim all the time, you'll catch a lot of the same fish. Because a lot of the fish like to hang in the same area, so I like to move about. That's just me. So I enjoy that type of fishing. Another thing I've learned over the years, like I said, I've learned a lot of things over the years, and I used to do this a lot. People who turn up on the bank, and I see it, and they'll turn up and they'll walk straight to the river's edge, and it might be a nice deep area way fishing, and they'll be there with the friends, and they'll be chatting away, having a laugh, having a joke, making lots of noise, making lots of vibration and all that, and then they'll get the bivvy out and they'll be banging the pegs in with the hammer. And if there's fish close in, they can hear all that, and then fish are gone. And I used to do the same thing. I was told by a few people about this, and when I thought about it, it made sense. A lot of times, the barbel are under your feet. You're making all that noise, and you're scaring away. When I'm fishing, and I have people with me, we're always talking away from the rods. I stand way back, I do, just so, and I always say, let's be quiet. So have a laugh and a talk, but don't obviously go too close. And I see them when they're banging the hammers, with the bivvy pegs and all that lot. Be quiet on the bank. Try and set up quiet as you can. If you are having a bit of a social, a couple of you, 2 or 3 of you, sit back. Stay away from the water's edge, because you'll scare all the fish, especially if they're out under your feet. So I would say be quiet when you're fishing on the bank, and you'll catch more fish, I think, especially if you're fishing close in. What time well? How long we got?
15.
15 minutes left. Oh, that's all right. I'm a bunch of time then. I haven't finished yet.
You want them back?
Yeah, a lot of times I fish on the river. Obviously, I fish on the tidal a lot, and a lot of the tidal's bland. And obviously, you're sat in an open field, basically. And obviously, you're looking for the features under the water, basically. But I do like fishing on the Middle Trent, because it's so picturesque. That's why I like fishing on the Wye, and on the Dove, on the Warwickshire Raven, and the Team. I just like fishing where there's features, overhanging trees. It's just a nice place to be. As you can see from that stretch there, that's on the Trent. Some of you might know where it is. But it's just a nice place to be. Like I say, on the tidal, like I say, a lot of places, you're just fishing open fields, and you're just like, you're open to all the elements. And when you're on the tidal, obviously that's where you've got to work your swim to find out what's on the bottom, the features, what you're looking for. Because a lot of people when I take them guiding with me, we'll go on the tidal and they think, wow, where'd you chuck? But obviously, if you work your swim, again, this way it comes rolling meat. So how I found my swims, what they're like on the bottom. Because I've rolled meat through a lot of them. And I found where the gravel is, and I found where the snags are, or where it's rocky. So I'll visualise that, and I think, well, if I get a static bait out, that's where I want it to be. Because we all like fishing on gravel. So it's important when you're on the tidal to work your swim so you can find it, because the features aren't always visible. Sometimes they are, obviously. But a lot of them under the water. So that's where watercraft comes involved. Obviously on that picture there, as you can see where the flow is on the far bank, you can see where the water, so obviously you're chucking halfway and just over. But sometimes when I'm rolling meat, or from lead, I used to lead about a bit. Before the deepers come out, I used to lead about a lot. I used to use an ounce lead, and I used to count it down. And if it took 4 seconds, I used to double it. So that'd be 8 foot. I'm pretty accurate with that. And when I've had the deeper out, and I've leaded about and been pretty close what the deeper said. So it's nice to lead about your swims, because you might find, well, a lot of people use deepers now. So obviously, I use a deeper, it's quicker, it's less commotion, and you can map the peg out quite well. Before the deepers, I used to lead about. And if I'm fishing a new stretch, and I've never fished the peg, before the deepers, I'd lead about. I'd find the areas, what I'd drag it through, I'd find where the gravels are, and you find where the rocks are, where it's snaggy, and so you'll know where to chuck, and where not to. There's nothing worse casting out and losing lead after lead after lead, putting new rigs on. So it's important, obviously, where you're fishing, to find out where the features are. Some are obvious features, obviously fishing on different, say the Warwickshire Raven, got a lot of overhanging trees, a lot of weed rafts, it's perfect, it's a good feature. You can see them straight away. Obviously if you fish on weirs, obviously I fish a bit on weirs, obviously they hold a lot of barbels. So again on the weirs, say Gunthorpe Weir, lead about on that every year, because these different snags comes in every year with the floods. And you get a lot of people just cast out, and it's lead after lead after lead, and more line in the rivers. So if you spend that bit of time leading about, or with a deeper, you'll catch a lot more fish, because you'll find the areas to fish and where the fish are going to be. So it's definitely worth paying a lot of time where you're fishing. Like I say, you can see on that picture, the flow's on the far bank. But on that stretch, I've caught barbel really close in as well. So like I say, I'd like to thank Nottingham Piscatorial for this talk. Obviously this is the first one I've done in front of so many people. I've been nervous, of course I have, yeah, because it wouldn't be. Obviously, I thought I'd go on first. I'd save the best till last, Brian. He's a bit of a professional at this talking. So I say I hope you all enjoyed it. I say I've tried my best. There is a raffle going on. So I have donated a guiding session 48 hours on the Tidal Trent or Middle Trent. Or if you want to go on the Gunthorpe Way, I can get you on that. So I say I hope you all enjoyed it. And where's Bob now anyway?
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you very much, Ian. Come around. We've got time for about 3 questions. Has anybody got a question for Ian? No.
Do you have any particular preference or you found to be favourable length of hook length?
Yeah, we have. I use longer hook links, like 3 foot, 4 foot. I used to use a bit smaller ones, which I know a few anglers who use shorter links than me and do really well. Julian, you do, don't you? So, but I use 3, 4 foot ones. My thinking of that being, I want my bait further away from the lead, because barbel don't always come straight up to the bait. Sometimes they'll go past it and see it and think, what's that? So when they turn round, obviously the tail will come round with it. So if my bait's further away from the lead, there's less chance of that tail hitting that line near the lead, going down into the water and spooking. Now in summer that don't matter, because they'll come and feed 4 or 5 times a day, no problem. But in winter, when they only feed for probably an hour and a half, and you're struggling, I don't want them getting spooked off by the lead. So I like to use a longer hook link, just so it gives me less chance of that barbel hitting that line. You're getting that, because a lot of times, I was using shorter hook links and we were getting bangs like that, and they were out there, or I'd wait for it and it'd go over, and I get a lot of line bites. But since I've been using a longer hook link, I've not been getting that many line bites. So I've found that's the reason why I use a longer hook link. Some people use 4, 5, 6 foot hook links and do very well. But some people use shorter links and do well. It's what you're confident with. I just thought the reason why I want a long hook link, because I don't want anything to spook the barbel. So if it hits the lead, it's going to spook off. And in summer they'll come back loads of times. But in winter they might not come back for 8 hours. So, yeah.
Okay. What made you get into barbel fishing, and what just got you interested in it?
Well, when I was your age, I used to live next to a pond, and I used to fish it every day, after school, in the holidays. And my dad obviously was on the rivers. I mean, my dad got me into barbel fishing. People talk about your heroes and like fishing heroes. My dad's my fishing hero, because he got me into fishing, barbel fishing. So my dad got me into the river fishing. And I went with my dad when I was 11 on the River Severn. And I caught my first barbel when I was 12. I had 4 barbel. And I'll never forget that day. They're only 3-pounders. But at that time...
Still good as a barbel.
Oh, any barbel's good. Whether it's £1 or £16, they're all special fish. And I like catching them when they're that size at pound. But it's good for the future. They're still there. When you're my age, they're still around, the barbel are. So, thank you for your question. What's his name?
Arthur.
Nice to meet you, Arthur. Thank you.
One more?
What do you think about tailor fishing on the island at Collingham?
Well, I'll answer this question, because, like I say, I'm my own person. My opinion, he's done nothing wrong. In my opinion, he's gone onto the island.
No, I didn't ask that. I said, what do you think about him fishing?
What do I think of him?
Well, not doing anything wrong, is it?
Well, I think he's gone there, he's caught some fish, good on him. You know, I think if you're out catching fish and you're enjoying yourself, that's all that matters. Now, I've seen, obviously, they got a lot of stick on Facebook about it, where he shouldn't be on this, but on the Tidal, you can go there on a boat, and he's just walked across in 2 foot water and sat on the island. I think a lot of people, if they could sit on that island at Collingham Way, they would do. So I've got no problem with fishing on the island. He's had some good fish off it, he's enjoyed himself, so fair play to him. So I'm not bothered with what other people do, just as long as they enjoy themselves, whether they're fishing for 8 hours, 8 days, it's fishing, isn't it? It's just fishing. There's more life to fishing. There's a war going on in Ukraine and Russia. And obviously you see a lot of stuff on Facebook nowadays, the Facebook warriors moaning about something. Just go out fishing, enjoy yourself. That's all it's about, just enjoy yourself. That's what I think. No problem.
Thank you very much, Ian. We've got about